Hello, Mary from Ireland here. My name is Mary Keena Donnellan. My website is www.angeliclifeguidance.com and I'm on social media under the name of Angels, Love and Light. I'm here today with your first video of the series about ancestors. Well, ancestors and your own inner journey as well, and where you might have picked up some of your traits or what you're working on or how you are the way you are, put it like that. So I'm using the Would You Believe deck by Father Jim Cogley, and he's down in Wexford in Ireland. Lovely, lovely man. I have a page on my website devoted to Raphael's garden in Oilgate, County Wexford, and he was guided by Archangel Raphael to find the garden and get it up and running, I suppose, based on a Bible passage. Anyway, today is the first video in the ancestral teachings, we'll say. I've done a bit on the ancestors in my book Onwards and Upwards that I published there in June 2020. So we'll start with this card, Family Tree. So if you were drawn to researching your family tree or putting it on computer or finding out about your ancestors, there's kind of always one in a family, and I was the one in mine. People messaged me, Mary, who's this? Mary, who was that? Who was she related to? Now it has died down a bit, the interest in it, but I was the one they would call on. So family tree. Each of us stands at the end of a long line of ancestors. We have 2 parents and 4 grandparents. We also have 8 great-grandparents, 16 great-great-grandparents, and so on. Stretching back into time immemorial, we have literally thousands of forebearers. These are people who often survived against all the odds. Like, we think we're bad in this day and age, but they really had hard times. Against all the odds, times of hunger and poverty, war and disease, injustice, oppression and hardship. It is an amazing fact that if any one of those ancestors had not survived, had died as an infant, been killed in war, or even had another partner, then you or I would never have been heard of. We just would not be here. Such is the delicate fabric of life, and what far-reaching consequences there are when we fail to respect it. What ways can I honour my ancestors? What positive traits have I inherited from my ancestors? What negative traits may also have been passed on? What ancestral gifts have been handed down in my family? What am I adding to my family tree? We are products of those who have gone before us. So even researching the family tree, writing about it, sharing the information with the members here on earth, writing a book about it, or just putting it together and telling people in the family that you have it, and if they want, they can get it from you. Sorry, I just pull out this. I don't think it makes any noise when it's charging. So how can you honor them? Can you find their graves and can you put flowers or keep them well? Or some people like to get a mass said for them. There are family healing masses. Up to you. Or maybe, in my case, I couldn't find my great-grandmother, so I tried everywhere and anywhere. She died during the 1916 rising in Ireland. There were no newspapers. There was no obituary. I couldn't find her. I couldn't find her grave. She wasn't buried with her husband, or her husband wasn't buried with her. He died after her. And eventually I wrote a blog about her, and I'm doing a little book as well. What's it called? Musings and something about of my life. So I'm starting with the ancestors, and then I'm moving on to modern day life and photographs I've taken and writing about them and experiences I've had. I'm only basing it on the photographs. So I don't know when that'll be out, but I'm working on it. I'm working on a few books at the same time. So how can you honor your ancestors? You can keep their names alive. You can do some research. Now, the only other thing about the ancestors is that they would have left unfinished business, most of them. And we are here carrying on that and healing and clearing the business that they could not finish because of the times they lived in and because of the fear of religion, the fear of war, the fear of poverty, the fear of oppression, and a lot of them were born out of wedlock as well, and it's difficult to do the tracing of them. Now, it's better in some countries than in others, but if you are meant to find them, you will. And mine all started in a meditation group. I had started the family tree, but I really didn't know that I was going to be working on ancestral healing. I started the tree in 2007, and the meditation group wasn't available to me till 2010. And because I was so interested in the family tree, it was an ancestral healing meditation. And I went along, and there we went. The lady was a medium and brought through my grandfather, and we did a healing as well, and I knew it was my great grandfather. I can't remember how I knew it was him I was linking in with, and it was something that he left unfinished and that he needed forgiveness for. So if you're drawn to the family tree, of course you are, or you wouldn't be watching this. I would tell you that it's well worth following up on it. And in my case, I would have reenacted some of the past with a son of mine. And when I did come to this realization, it brought great love to me for my son, because he, the soul contract, I'll come and help you find this, or I'll help you reenact the situation that happened in the 1920s. And it's amazing what souls contract to do before we come in. It is just amazing that I believe that anyway, from the path I've walked, that we do make contracts with each other. I'll help you with this. Our job is to do this, our mission, and when we have it done, then we're grand. We'll love each other on earth. So ancestral scripts. So we're talking about the S here. Two unusually shaped pieces of wood interlock to form the letter S. Ancestral scripts tend to pass from one generation to the next in an unconscious manner. Ancestral scripts form our attitudes and affect much of our outlook on life. Learning to shape our own destiny demands that we recognize the baggage of these limiting beliefs and not just learn to discard them, but replace them with something more positive and life-affirming. Limiting beliefs can become self-fulfilling prophecies. A script heard in childhood that I will never come to anything makes it very difficult to be anything. An unspoken script that I am only as good as I am useful can give rise to workaholism. How has the way I see myself been influenced by my family script? What was my family script in relation to anger, money, sex, religion, politics? What would be some positive, life-affirming beliefs that I need? To be authentic is to be the author of my own script. See, he writes it that way and then he puts this affirmation down at the bottom. So I think, it's what went on in your family and what went on in your parents' family and what came down. What were the belief systems? What were the times? What were the church's teachings? What went on in the country at the time or the world at the time, World War stuff. We pick up on all of that stuff. And did some of our ancestors fight in these wars? Did some of our ancestors lose people in these wars? Did some of our ancestors not come home to their wives and their children? All of that affects us. We carry the loss and the pain and all of that stuff down through the family tree. And also we carry depends. Certain people take on certain missions, and some people arrive on earth to clear physical illnesses from the family tree, and more often in different ways, in less fearful ways than the ancestors. So that's the family scripts. And then we have the ancestral legacies. So they're all much the same. So I'm just bringing the 4 cards to your notice. The cobra, it's in the shape of a snake. The cobra vase is supported by a shape that resembles a deadly cobra. Each generation stands on the shoulders of the ones that have gone before, and our legacy can be both positive and negative. Much of what we inherit is of a positive nature, like talents, gifts, aspects of appearance, and personality traits. However, we may also find that we are not just being upheld, but we are also being overshadowed and even poisoned by some aspects of our family history. Could what's repressed in one generation be expressed in another? Most definitely. Could hereditary conditions have ancestral roots? Yes. Could unresolved grief become the legacy of the next generation? Yes. Could the effects of wrongdoing ripple down through the generations? Yes. Could bitterness, resentment, and a sense of injustice run in families? Yes. Could family patterns repeat themselves with extraordinary accuracy? Yes. Know the truth, and the truth will set you free. I know that from watching my family and from what I've done and what I've healed and what I've been working on in my family. Most definitely, yes to all of those. So this is the ancestral self. This is wood. I think a bad piece of wood. This intriguing piece is entirely a nature design. It is a piece of olive wood that comes from Vilnius in Lithuania. Although it is perfectly imperfect, it is also perfectly whole. It is contortions and distortions. In its contortions and distortions, the piece reflects the troubled history of its country of origin. It is also, I better put it closer, the eyesight is getting a bit tired at this stage. It is also a wonderful symbol of the wholeness that can come to a family where even 1 or 2 people undertake the work of family tree healing. Are there issues in my family that have never been talked about? Have secrets been held with a vulnerable member carrying the burden? Have people died with unfinished business who may not be at peace? Are there scapegoats who have been ostracized both in life and death? Is the picture incomplete because of abortions? I was just going to say that, abortions and miscarriages. And, those kids wouldn't have been buried. through religion, because they were seen to be having original sin, and they weren't baptized in the old Catholic, even in the present Catholic religion. You know, you're born with original sin, so therefore if you're not baptized, you are not clear, you know, and you don't get buried in the graveyard. You didn't at that time. You didn't get buried. You weren't recognized. A lot of people buried fetuses and children that died at birth quietly at night under the shade of night. Whoa. Wonder why did that get bright all of a sudden? Because they weren't allowed in the graveyard, just like suicide members who committed suicide. They weren't allowed to be buried in the graveyard either. You know? Is the picture incomplete because of abortions and miscarriages? These miscarriages and the abortions, they need to be recognized. They need to have names. They need to be remembered. You know, I lost my twin brother in the womb. I didn't know that until I started walking this path as well. And he came through a medium and he needed to be recognized. And he also wanted a name. And I was the one that had to put the name on him, not my mother and father. I told them about him. They didn't know that. I'll be talking about this anyway. There is a card called Womb Twin. So I'll be speaking about that. But he needed recognition. And I had to find a way to recognize him. I didn't tell many. I didn't put him on the family tree when I handed it around to everybody, because it seems very personal to me. So I told my own children, and I told my parents, I told my sister and my brother. I don't know who took what or how they took it, but I told them. And I named him. And I had a little altar for him. Now I didn't make plaques or anything like that. He left at 3 months in the womb when my mother fell down the stairs. She had no bleeding or anything, no pain, no nothing. But I have followed up on this, and I heard in a documentary one day, or a chat, a women's show on the telly, that one of the presenters had 2 babies in her first scan and only 1 in the second scan. So she explained to the audience that this is called the disappearing twin, and that it's 1 in 8 that just leave. Very interesting. Any patterns of behavior passing down the are patterns of behavior passing down the generations? Are there problems that are older than the individual who is suffering? Like alcoholism would be a prime example of that, or you know, people being in prison, or you know, getting into trouble coming down the generations, or depression coming down the generations, illness, you know. So we'll talk about that later anyway. So are there problems that are older than the individual who is suffering? The issues of the past that we refuse to deal with will always reappear as fate. And Carl Jung said that, the psychologist Carl Jung. What dawned on me there? The issues of the past that we refuse to deal with. So, you know, while we're here, if we have any issues to deal with, just know that if you deal with them yourself in this lifetime, you will not be passing the burden on to your children, or their children even, because it was my great-grandfather's stuff, and actually it was his child that I was working with, my grandaunt, and it was her feelings that I felt. And like there was a parallel to it as well. I was also feeling feelings of women through World War times. And excuse me, it was my great grandfather's actions that caused this pain to his daughter and her feelings I was feeling. No clue. I never met her. She was on Earth in America during my lifetime. Like the two of us were on Earth together, but I did not know she existed. I did not know her grandson existed until after she died and until I started the family tree. Actually, it was a while after. I started the family tree in 2007, and I think it was in 2009 that I found out there were so many other people in America that I didn't know about on the tree. My grandfather's brothers and sisters. And my father's alive, but he didn't know this. You know, like times were weird back then. When family members went, they were gone, and that was it. When they went to emigrated, there'd be the odd letter, and it would be the older generation who would be in communication with them, and the younger generation wouldn't even know about them really unless they came home for a visit, which most of them didn't, you know. So the issues of the past that we refuse to deal with will always reappear as fate. And in my own case, there's a family pattern going on for years in the family tree, and several people have experienced it, and it causes absolute huge pain and loss, even though nobody dies most of the time. And it hasn't been brought to the light yet. There are certain people and myself going through it at the moment, and you know, it's not just me that can bring it to the light. There's another person involved with me, and I can't bring it to the light yet until their free will is at play. And there are others as well who are going through this, and they have chosen not to bring it to the light, because when it was brought to the light over the years, there was mayhem, war, separation, not war, but chaos and drama and separation and bad feelings and punishment for those who were going through it. And the church had a lot to do with that, you know. So that is not finalized yet. I hope to be able to do it it's not looking good at the moment, and maybe I don't need to bring it into the physical light. Maybe I just have to write about it down through the years afterwards to leave behind me. It doesn't seem to have gone through to the next generations, but I'm not sure. I know my children, it hasn't gone through to them, but who knows, it could go through to the generation afterwards, my grandchildren, you know. So I feel it has to be finalized in my lifetime, because I have a mission, and I am adamant I clear my mission before I leave. And it's big, like that ancestral stuff to me is big stuff and a big mission. So this Father Cogley, he has written books as well about all of this. Most of what's on the cards is in the books, and further along I'll give you his website. He does write blogs, he does do workshops. That's in Ireland though, but he does write the blogs, and anybody can access them from anywhere. So I think I will leave it at that. So how will you remember your ancestors? How will you help them heal? How will you find out? Ask them to come to you at night while you sleep, or ask them to come to you in meditation if they need help. Now, I had contact from a girl to, like, we have to bring this to the country as well. Like, it's family by family, person by person, family by family, and we're also healing the country's issues. the history of the country, because there were many ancestors involved in mothers and babies' homes, abuse by the church, abuse in schools, awful stuff in psychiatric hospitals, and medical procedures in hospitals, world wars. All of that affects us, and anything that wasn't healed, where you'll know what you have to heal yourself. Fear was huge, and we have to transmute fear. Now we will feel fear because it will push us forward, but not the paralyzing fear. We can work on not being paralyzed by fear, and not letting institutions push us into fear, and not letting our power be taken away from us by institutions. Now, at the moment, we're going through COVID-19 in 2020, and there are sides of the story that are being posted on the internet, and I do look at them all. They are possible timelines. They are possible happenings. I'm choosing not to walk into the timelines of being under control of powerful, so-called powerful people. I intend not to be mandated into doing things that's against my will. And you see, we're learning all this, learning to stand in our power, learning to say no, learning to follow our hearts, learning to manifest our desires, as well as doing all this work. Like, we've got to come to a good place after all of this. Like, to me, we can't leave the planet without experiencing heaven on earth, in my opinion. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll talk to you in video number 2. I'll choose whatever cards I think I want to talk about next, and I hope you enjoyed this. Now, if you have any questions, marylindaliz@gmail.com is my email address, and you'll find all contact details on my website anyway, www.angeliclifeguidance.com. Talk to you soon.